Exposed. My parents chose cash over love. Discover how I transformed this incredible pain. Sarah Mitchell sat at her cluttered desk in the corporate design office, staring blankly at the untouched project on her screen. The sterile fluorescent lights hummed overhead, mirroring the numbness that had settled deep within her. She was trapped in a life shackled by her parents' expectations, success defined only by wealth, not fulfillment. Each day, their relentless pursuit of financial stability echoed in her mind, a mantra that stifled her artistic spirit, leaving her to question her worth beyond a paycheck. The ache of inadequacy swelled as she recalled the bright colors and wild emotions of her childhood, a time when art was her escape, not a burden. Now, as a graphic designer, she felt her creativity suffocating beneath the weight of client demands and corporate deadlines. It gnawed at her, a persistent whisper that her talent was wasted on digital advertisements, rather than the canvases that used to reflect her soul. One rainy afternoon, a sliver of hope broke through her desolation. While clearing out her late grandmother's attic, she unearthed a collection of untouched canvases and sketches. Each piece shimmered with raw passion, the kind that could ignite a desire buried deep within her. As she flipped through her grandmother's vibrant works, a bittersweet nostalgia washed over her. This was the artist she wanted to be, unencumbered and inspired. But the stark reality swiftly returned like a cold slap. Pursuing her art meant defying the very ideals her family had instilled in her heart. Hope flickered against the shadows of parental disapproval. Art was, after all, seen as an indulgence, a weakness, a sentiment reinforced over years of conditioning. Yet, deep inside, as she began swirling paint on her own canvas, she felt an awakening. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. The urge to submit a piece to the local gallery roared within her, a rebellious act that could fracture her family's fragile understanding of success. But what if they rejected her dreams like they had so many times before? As she found herself filling a canvas with bold strokes of color, a conflict rooted in childhood insecurities clawed at her mind. What if her art was not good enough, the ultimate affirmation of their doubts? The pride she felt upon receiving an acceptance letter was swiftly overshadowed by dread. How could she face her parents, after years spent walking their predetermined path? Could she bear the thought of letting them down? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As her artwork gained attention in the small town, her parents faced financial turmoil that forced them to reevaluate their ideals. They had prided themselves on raising a successful daughter. Yet Sarah's burgeoning passion challenged that definition violently. Each brushstroke symbolized defiance, unraveling the fabric of their expectations. But just when the possibility of reconciliation felt imminent, a financial crisis struck, one that demanded her to choose between her aspirations and her family's mounting debts. The familiar tightening in her chest morphed into a suffocating grip as she weighed her options. Would she sacrifice her artistry to keep her family intact? Could she bear the thought of abandoning the part of herself that had begun to bloom? Standing before her swirling masterpiece, grief collided with a fierce determination, leaving her heart heavy with questions. What would her choice mean for her art, and for the family threadbare with emotional distance? The answers eluded her, leaving only a chasm of uncertainty, as she braced herself for an irrevocable decision forever looming on the horizon. The days that followed were enveloped in a haze of tension. Sarah found herself oscillating between exhilaration and dread. Each morning, the sunlight streaming through her apartment window served as a bittersweet reminder of her creativity, the very same sunlight that illuminated the stark truths of her existence. The local gallery's acceptance of her artwork felt like a well-deserved victory, yet each brushstroke now carried the weight of her family's breaking financial situation. The joy of her artistic breakthrough clashed violently with the fears gnawing at her conscience. Every evening, after returning from the office, rather than diving into her art with the same zeal as before, Sarah fell into a rhythm of second-guessing her choices. Surrounded by her grandmother's untouched canvases, she hesitated to take the next steps necessary to establish herself as a legitimate artist. The daunting prospect of failure lingered like a dark cloud, threatening to dwarf her budding confidence. One afternoon, while flipping through her emails, a notification caught her eye. The gallery would host a showcase next week, an opportunity to present herself publicly at last. Memories of her parents' disapproval spiraled in her mind, the echo of their words haunting her. Art is a hobby, Sarah. You need to be practical. Each time she envisioned standing in front of her own work, showcasing her heart and soul to the world, she felt a pulse of excitement followed by a stab of anxiety. The thought of facing her parents, her successes juxtaposed against their financial struggles, sent chills through her resolve. During dinner, as her parents gathered at the table, their faces were drawn tight, each guilty glance revealing the toll of their predicament. Still, Sarah steeled herself, gripping her fork tightly. Should she break the unspoken silence that loomed heavy over their meal? "What if I told you I'm part of a gallery exhibit next week?" she blurted suddenly, surprising herself with the strength of her own voice. Her mother stopped mid-bite, looking at her as if Sarah had just declared a secret from a distant planet. "What do you mean, a gallery exhibit? Is this really the time to waste energy on such nonsense?" The sting of disbelief lanced through Sarah. The familiar echoes of rejection reverberated between them. Yet, through the haze of conflicting emotions, a deep-seated passion surged forward. "Art is not nonsense. This is my life, Mom. It's what I love," she countered fiercely, the words spilling out with unexpected force. A suffocating silence enveloped the table. Sarah could see her father's brow furrow, filtering through myriad thoughts as the tension morphed into something heavy and visceral. Suddenly, Sarah realized she was no longer merely speaking to defend her choices before her parents. She was also advocating for herself. In that moment, she embraced a clarity that had evaded her for so long. Here was the crux of her struggle, not just the pressure between familial expectations and her artistic desires, but the battle for her own identity. Yet inside her chest, alongside this newfound determination, lurked an all too familiar shadow: fear. What if pursuing her dreams only served to further alienate her family during their toughest times? The crossroads of her life loomed larger than ever, a dizzying array of paths unfurling before her as the night deepened and her family continued to argue the implications of her choices. An epiphany ignited within Sarah. She didn't have to choose between her art and her family. She could weave them together. Maybe, just maybe, her artwork could inspire change, fuel resilience, and bring light into their darkest days. With a fresh resolve, she knew tomorrow would be the day of her reckoning, the day she shared her vision with the world. But as she lay in bed that night, the threads of excitement and anxiety intertwined, leaving her restless. Because while she felt invigorated by her resolve, another realization dawned on her. Facing her parents was only part of her journey. Facing herself and truly believing in her worth as an artist would demand even more courage than she had ever summoned before. And in that tension, the weight of her next decision loomed, an imminent confrontation with the deepest parts of her soul, awaiting clarity and resolution. Little did she know, the gallery's opening would test not only her resolve as an artist, but also the fundamental bonds of love that connected her to her family. Would her art finally bridge the chasm that had grown so vast between them, or would it push them further apart? As the dawn crept in, painting the room in a soft wash of gray, Sarah felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. Today was not just a showcase, it was a crucible. The gallery awaited, filled with the expectation of both admirers and critics alike. She sat on the edge of her bed, the stark contrast of her vibrant art against the muted backdrop of her swirling thoughts tugging at her psyche. Taking a deep breath, she decided to transform the fraying edges of anxiety into focus. She pulled out her sketchbook, flipping through pages filled with whimsical portraits and abstract landscapes. These weren't just drawings, they were snapshots of her internal conflict, representing her struggles, dreams, and the relentless tug-of-war between familial duty and personal ambition. With each stroke of her pencil, she began to unravel the tightly wound emotions in her chest. She needed to show not merely her art, but the essence of her journey, the vulnerability and strength interwoven into every piece. It was a message that transcended the canvas, one of hope, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of identity. As she made her way to the gallery, the bustling city felt like a different world. People hurried by, oblivious to the inner storm brewing within her. Each footstep echoed with the question that had become her mantra. Was her art enough? But it wasn't just a matter of talent. It was whether she could lay bare her soul and face the critical gaze of the very people she yearned for approval from. The gallery was a kaleidoscope of colors, a stark contrast to her gray thoughts. She marveled at the vibrant displays, the artist's works narrating stories of struggles similar to her own. Here, among strangers who transformed pain into beauty, she was simultaneously thrilled and terrified. It felt like stepping into a realm where the judgments of her parents were irrelevant. Sarah's heart raced as she set up her work. Each painting hung with purpose, reflecting her evolution from a reluctant artist to someone willing to embrace her voice. She stepped back, taking in the collective aura of the room, understanding that today was about more than just her art. It was an opportunity for reclamation. She had to reclaim her narrative from the omnipresent weight of familial disapproval as the guests began to arrive. An unsettling mix of anticipation and dread blossomed within her. Conversations swirled around her like a tempest. She caught snippets of praise directed at other artists and felt the icy fingers of self-doubt creep back. What if her art was dismissed as merely another amateur attempt? "Sarah, your pieces are amazing." A voice broke through her tumultuous thoughts, and she turned to see Lara, a friend from the community studio. The warmth in Lara's eyes momentarily eased the tension in Sarah's chest. "Do you really think so?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but her vulnerability was met with fierce encouragement. "Absolutely. You've poured your heart into them. Just remember, this is about you. Your journey matters." "Don't lose sight of that," Lara replied, placing a comforting hand on Sarah's shoulder. The words struck a chord, resonating deeply with her desire to be seen and heard. It was her time to step into the light, however. The mere thought of encountering her parents amidst the crowd sent tremors through her confidence. Would they view her as a misguided dreamer, or would they finally see her unwavering conviction? The earlier confrontation echoed in her mind, yet now it served as fuel rather than a deterrent as the evening unfolded. She channeled every fleeting moment of doubt into a fierce determination. The gallery was buzzing, the murmurs of appreciation growing louder, igniting the small flame of hope within her. She felt tethered to her creations, the fingerprints of her struggles forever etched in vibrant colors. But just as she began to relax, she spotted them. Her parents standing by her paintings, uncertain and skeptical, their expressions unreadable in the shifting light. The tension between them swelled, a chasm visible even amid the crowd. In that precarious moment, the reality struck Sarah with unnerving clarity. This was the moment of truth. Would she crumble under the weight of their expectations, or would she rise, defining her space as an artist? As her parents gestured at a piece emblazoned with her hopes and fears, the question hung in the air. Would they recognize her journey, or remain blinded by their preconceived notions of success? The air was thick with anticipation, and she knew the next few minutes could shatter or solidify everything she had fought for. The gallery's reading of her artwork may have been the lead-up to one conversation, but now it felt like the crux of several lifetimes of emotions. She took a step forward, ready to engage not just the audience, but the heart of her existence, and the simmering dynamics of her family. Little did she know, this art showcase would be the beginning of an unraveling deeper than she ever anticipated. The air between them crackled with repression, a charged duality of possibility and dread. Sarah stood before her paintings, her palms warm and clammy, straining to unravel her parents' verdict hidden behind their inscrutable faces. The vibrant hues of her art seemed to flicker and dance in the harsh gallery lighting, reflecting the turbulent emotions she was struggling to contain. "Your use of color is interesting," her mother said, the words hanging in the air like a fragile whisper. It felt more like an observation than an acknowledgement, a thin veil over criticism. Sarah clenched her fists at her sides, biting back a surge of frustration. Interesting was code for not good enough. Yet, as her father stepped closer to the piece adorned with her most intimate struggles, she watched him squint and lean in, trying to decipher the narrative interwoven within the brushstrokes. The way he approached the canvas brought a glimmer of hope, however fleeting. Their gazes met for an agonizing second before he averted his eyes, returning to the safe stance of the observer rather than a participant in her story. In that moment of hesitance, a tidal wave of possibilities surged within her. What if this vulnerability was what they needed? What if revealing her fears, her dreams, and her unyielding pursuit of self-worth could bridge the chasm that had long divided them. Coupled with the growing crowd around them, the urge to express her truth felt insurmountable but equally terrifying. She steadied her breath, considering her next steps with the precision of an artist crafting their brush strokes. "Mom, Dad," Sarah finally found her voice, clarity bubbling to the surface, fueled by both fear and excitement. "These pieces, they're not just colors on a canvas. They're pieces of my life, my experiences. They reflect where I've been, what I've overcome." Her eyes scanned their faces, searching for a flicker of understanding, but all she saw were frowns painted in shades of disappointment. Her father crossed his arms, features creased into the familiar mask of disapproval. "We just don't understand." "Why this?" The question echoed, exposing deeper unresolved tensions within their relationship. "What don't you understand?" She dared to probe, urgency spurring her spirit. "Art isn't merely a hobby for me. It's my language, it's how I communicate the chaos in my mind and heart. I fought to claim this space and I want you to see me." The silence that followed was heavy, a web of expectations that tangled around them, suffocating their connection. Sarah couldn't help but wonder if through this unfolding confrontation, she could finally manifest not only her art, but her true self. "Maybe if you gave it more time," her mother began, but Sarah interjected, unwilling to allow the conversation to wade back into lukewarm territory. "No, I cannot shape my life according to your beliefs. I am not the daughter you expected me to be. Maybe I'm not what you wanted, but I am what I need." The fire behind her words scorched the air, displacing a weight that had settled in her chest for years. Suddenly, the eclectic crowd around them erupted in applause, praising the work, voicing their admiration. Sarah's heart fluttered as her resolve solidified, melting away the icy grip of her parents' perception. Every clap felt like a reminder that she wasn't just seeking approval from those who birthed her. There were others who heard her call. In that moment, she recognized the exquisite solitude in being her own advocate. Was it enough simply to be heard? Or did she need to push the boundaries of their acceptance even further? As she sought her parents' responses within the cheers, she couldn't ignore the spark evidence of the transformation brewing within her. Just as she prepared to delve deeper, to challenge the walls they had erected, she caught a glimpse of a familiar face slipping through the crowd. With a chill, she realized it was Derek, a former classmate whose derision had haunted her since their final critique. His expression twisted with amusement, eyes narrowing to take in the spectacle of her struggle. The air shifted. Sarah's heartbeat intensified, stoking the fire within her to confront not only her family but also the ghosts of her past. Overcoming not one but two specters could redefine her narrative, or cause it to unravel completely. The moment of truth was approaching, and she sensed that embracing her art might fortify not just her own spirit, but the tether that connected her to her family's legacy. Could she confront both her parents and Derek, unearthing the layers of pain through her artistry? With the crowd buzzing, Sarah squared her shoulders, summoning her courage, knowing now that this was not just a fight for acceptance, but for her very identity. What if this confrontation changed everything, however? Even as she felt the flickering embers of hope ignite, deeper questions loomed. Would her parents ever truly understand her? Or would their convictions shatter her aspirations one final time? The applause swelled, an exhilarating tide that surged through Sarah's veins, but beneath it lingered an undercurrent of fear. The faces of her parents blurred out of focus. They were mere shadows among the vibrant figures who praised her work, and yet their disapproval remained a palpable ache at the center of her chest. Derek's figure pushed forward through the throng, his smile no longer a slice of cruelty but a mask of curiosity. Perhaps he had come to laugh, to twist the knife in her struggle. Her pulse quickened, each beat an echoing reminder of her vulnerabilities laid bare. But wasn't this the moment for confrontation? Weren't they all witnesses to her journey, to the pain she had splashed onto her canvases? Stories dripped in color and heartache. She met Derek's gaze, his amusement shifting into something more contemplative. In this instant, she felt a weight lift. She was no longer the girl twisted in his derision, but a woman claiming her space. The realization struck her. This was an opportunity to challenge not just Derek, but herself. With every flicker of doubt, determination ignited anew, igniting her resolve. The jagged edges of her past were raw, but it was time to redefine the narrative. Derek, she said, her voice discovering unexpected steadiness, you've been watching me from the sidelines for years. Why not step out of the shadows? You know as well as I do what pain can do to art. His smirk wavered, replaced by a genuine contemplation that disarmed her. I have my own stories, Sarah. Not everything is as easy as painting it over, he replied, the challenge in his tone both inviting and confrontational. So let us talk about that, she dared, feeling a surge of adrenaline, as if her own brush were in hand. Let us talk about what it means to reveal the truth beneath the surface. Would this be the moment she turned the tide? Behind her, she sensed the collective breath of the crowd, drawn in by her audacity. Would her parents linger on the sidelines or join her in this confrontation of past and present? As Derek stepped closer, Sarah caught a flicker of acknowledgement shimmer in his eyes, a familiar reflection of pain meeting ambition, each grappling for space within their respective histories. You're right. Pain is what fuels us. Derek's tone shifted, as if a door had creaked open. But sometimes it's easier to just hide it or bury it under layers. I assent it? Then let us unearth it together, she offered, emboldened by the possibility of collective catharsis. I refuse to allow it to be my burden alone. The crowd remained riveted, but Sarah's focus narrowed to her parents, who through it all continued to stand rigid, arms crossed and faces lined with confusion. What was preventing them from crossing that same chasm she seemed to navigate with Derek? It troubled her, this parental distance, as their expectations clashed directly with her desires. Mom, Dad, she implored, her voice freshly laced with urgency. You want me to be something I'm not, but that's not how life works. Not for you, not for me. Can't you see? I'm unearthing my truest self. With every word, she felt her former self timid, restrained, slipping away. Her heart beat an insistent rhythm of defiance. Would her parents finally see her need for affirmation? Did their legacy have to be one of judgment, rather than acceptance? In this fertile moment pregnant with tension, she felt the fracture in their relationship either widen or begin to mend based on her next breath. This was a threshold she had never dared cross. Would she step into the unknown? As Derek nodded slowly, almost in solidarity, a more profound realization settled within Sarah. Perhaps these tangled interactions weren't just a blend of acceptance and ambition. They were woven threads of love that remained unacknowledged, woven through criticism and confusion. If we embrace this pain, maybe we can weave it into something beautiful. Her echoing thought surged forward, revealing her desire more potent than ever. Could this moment lead her family to awareness? Or would they pull further away? The confrontation with her parents hung tantalizingly in the air. She needed to decide. Would she push forward into the uncharted territories of their relationship, confronting her past to build her future? The answer lingered just out of reach, yet the pull of the moment gripped her fiercely, reshaping her desires. As the applause dimmed, the intensity of silence became a canvas for her next move. What would she reveal? What truths might surface? The stakes were higher than ever, the need for resolution paramount. The silence stretched, a taut string ready to snap. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, a cacophony that drowned out the remnants of applause. For a fleeting moment, she felt suspended in time, caught between the echoes of her past and the weight of her present. The crowd's anticipation turned her words into an uncharted navigation, a daring map of vulnerability set against unyielding expectations. Can you hear me? She pressed, her voice a blend of fear and fierce determination. I am here, standing before you after everything that's happened. I'm asking you to look beyond what you wanted for me. Her parents, entrenched in their rigid beliefs, appeared stagnant. Would they shatter their expectations to see the woman she had become? Sarah felt the energy of the room shift as she plunged into their stunned expressions, the shadows lying thick around her question. Is this all you ever wanted for me? She demanded, her gaze sharpening. To fit a mold that doesn't fit? This isn't rebellion, it's survival. I'm not broken. I'm becoming whole. The air crackled with tension. She had painted herself into a corner, yet the brushstrokes of defiance felt liberating. As she stood on the precipice of emotional exposure, Sarah realized she couldn't afford to look back. Her evolution required risking her relationship with her parents, possibly losing their approval forever in pursuit of her own identity. Derek shifted beside her, casting an invisible thread of support through their shared moment. You have to show them what's possible, he murmured almost to himself. Maybe they need to see it through your eyes. She grasped onto his words, letting them embolden her further. Art, Sarah responded slowly, her voice regaining its strength, isn't just a reflection of beauty. It's a raw expression of truth. Every brushstroke holds a piece of my struggle, my joys, and yes, my pain. If you can't accept that, how can we ever reconcile? The silence hung heavier. Her parents' rigid facade began to crack, their eyes glossing over with something that resembled realization. Anguish tied tightly to hope knotted in her core. With each heartbeat, she knew she was exposing her soul, a gamble that could either heal or rupture. Was this a misguided plunge into darkness, or the beginning of a new dawn? Derek's nod reassured her, his understanding solidifying their connection in a moment rife with potential. It was a balance she hadn't realized. She sought a partnership formed in the crucible of shared vulnerabilities. Did he too see the latent heartbreak that ruled their lives like a cruel puppeteer? Let us paint a new story together, Sarah continued, her voice rising, commanding the atmosphere. A canvas where pain can coexist with love, where my truth is not an enemy but a bridge. Her words unfolded into the air, a vibrant tapestry weaving through the silence. Would her parents traverse that bridge or falter at the threshold? The crowd felt like a storm swirling around her, but it was not their applause Sarah sought. It was a singular, powerful recognition from the two people who defined her past, and now held the power to influence her future. As she turned back toward her parents, searching their faces for the answers she needed, she felt the tension magnify. Would they join her on this journey of acceptance, or remain static in their fear? In that disquieting moment, a new possibility sprouted. The impact of true confrontation had landed. But how deep did their love run? And could it withstand the tides of their differences? Locked in fear yet electrified by possibility, Sarah became aware that this was merely the beginning. The pivotal transformation was ahead. Would they embrace the painter or continue to battle the art? The legacy of their relationship hinged precariously on the edge of her next revelation. The weight of the moment grew heavier, and Sarah prepared to unearth the deepest layers of her story, a revelation that could change everything. But would her parents be ready? The tension tautened, stretching toward an uncertain future that loomed just beyond the horizon. Sarah stood in the spotlight, anchored in the whirlwind of emotions raging around her. The silence was thick enough to slice through, and she could almost hear the frantic beating of her heart contrasting with the stillness of the audience. The moment felt monumental, its significance pressing down on her shoulders. She had laid bare her soul, stripped away the layers that had concealed her truth, a truth that had the power to unite or divide. She searched her parents' eyes, seeking the flicker of recognition or acceptance. Instead, she found only the storm clouds of doubt and fear swirling behind their gaze. Her mother's tightly clenched fists were a testament to her discomfort, while her father's brow furrowed in confusion hinted at an internal battle raging within him. Would they embrace her evolution or cling to their past expectations like a life raft amidst the tides of change? Sarah, her father began, his voice tremulous, "We just don't understand why you chose this path. Why would you throw your future away on this? On art?" His words cut like daggers, each syllable steeped in apprehension. Anything less than the sterile paths he envisioned felt like a gamble, destabilizing everything he had built. The pressure to conform, to achieve stability in acceptable forms, loomed large in his shadow. It was the legacy of his own upbringing, a relentless drive for security that now threatened to eclipse the love he felt for his daughter. Tears stung Sarah's eyes as she recomposed herself. "This isn't just art to me, it's my voice. Each piece reveals pieces of my journey, the parts of me you've never seen. The parts 1V kept hidden to please you. I fought too hard to silence myself." With each word she felt the tremors of fear subside, replaced by the kindling of conviction. It was no longer about gaining their approval. It was about claiming her right to exist authentically, in a world that pressed for compliance. She understood now that she wasn't just battling for respect, she was advocating for her own life. Her mother finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "But what will people say? What if this leads you to failure?" Those words, laced with worry, struck another chord. Sarah's vision sharpened, igniting her resolve further. Failure is not the absence of success. It's part of the journey. I want to create My worth is not defined by you or anyone else, but by the authenticity I bring into the world. Derek's presence beside her grounded her, his unwavering support radiating warmth in her growing confidence. She could feel the shift, a crack in the wall separating them. Would it widen to let understanding flood in? Or would hesitation reinforce the barriers they had built over the years? Art is risky, she continued, and every risk I take brings me closer to who I am meant to be. I don't want to live in the shadow of someone else's dreams anymore. I chose this not because I sought to defy you, but because I'm learning to honor myself. Silence drifted once more through the room, each second dragging with the weight of unspoken words. With every breath, Sarah recognized that the stakes had escalated. A wall of tension had morphed into a bridge of opportunity, but crossing it required effort from them all. Suddenly, the audience felt both distant and intimately close. She could sense their collective heartbeat echoing through the silence. What would it take to break through the final barrier? In that moment of stillness, visions of her past clashed with the dreams she could still fulfill. With newfound clarity, the corner of her mouth tugged upward. Let us build a new narrative together. I want to share my world with you, from wild imaginations to heartbreaking truths. But it starts here and now. Will you choose to accept me? The future hung before them, trembling on the precipice of acceptance and divide. She dared not guess their reactions, focusing instead on the courage swirling within her. Above all, Sarah understood that this confrontation was merely a pivotal chapter, one leading toward a far deeper reckoning. The silence lingered. She felt the weight of their decision hang heavy in the air, marking the beginning of a larger journey for each of them. Would their love rise to the occasion, or would it fray like a canvas under pressure? And if they couldn't meet her halfway, how far would she have to go alone? The stillness that enveloped Sarah felt like a tidal wave, each heartbeat louder than the last. With the question she posed hanging in the air, she realized she was no longer the frightened girl seeking approval. Instead, she was a woman asserting her right to be seen in her entirety. And yet, something inside her churned uneasily as she awaited their response. Her father's lips moved, a practiced act of reticence, and when he finally spoke, his words were teetering on the edge of disappointment. Sarah, we want what's best for you. We're scared. Scared that you might get hurt, or that this dream of yours is just a pipe dream. Tension flickered between them, slashing through whatever semblance of support had begun to form. It was clear to Sarah that they saw her passion as a risk, a gamble played not only with her future but with their legacy as a family. The realization burned fiercely in her chest. This was not merely about her art. It was about trust, acceptance, and the burden of expectation. I appreciate your concern, she said, her voice steady yet laced with an underlying urgency. But living in fear isn't living at all. Isn't it time we redefine what success means? Her mother, whose countenance displayed a cocktail of love and panic, finally blinked away tears. But what if you fail? What will happen to you if this doesn't work out? In that moment, Sarah felt the heavens shift. It was not only a question about her career. It was a question that disintegrated the very foundation on which her parents' ideas of success were built. This was her chance to confront not only their fears but her own. Failure is a part of the process, she replied, meeting her mother's gaze unflinchingly. It's a lesson, an opportunity to evolve. If I do not allow myself to stumble, how will I ever learn to stand? I refuse to be imprisoned by the fear of what might happen. I want to invest my heart in something real, and in that process find out who I am truly meant to be. With every conviction, she felt the walls of her insecurities receding. Yet, the rawness of her voice intensified the air in the room. It breathed life into her desires but also exposed the fissures in her familial ties. Would they choose to embrace her evolution? Or would they wallow in familiar expectations that felt increasingly suffocating? Maybe it's time we all take a risk, she added, allowing herself to explore the depths of her yearning. What if you handed me a brush instead of a blueprint? Let me paint my own path. You'll see the beauty it can create. Derek, silently observing, expelled a breath, the warmth of his aura radiating as he stepped forward, echoing her sentiments. We can't shape her dreams, but we can support them. Her journey is not about what you fear, but about discovering who she is. Inspired by his presence, Sarah felt a new layer of comfort weave itself through her at the thought of perhaps not being entirely alone. However, the clock was ticking, and she understood that her parents would need time to process this metamorphosis. But would they choose to meet her at this crossroads? Or would the weight of their own projections pull her back into a stifling past? The moment hung suspended, exuding a curious mixture of hope and inevitability. In the dust of this pivotal confrontation lay another question, lurking beneath the surface like a shadow waiting to be revealed. How could she foster understanding and growth, when all they had ever known was a singular path? As she watched their expressions shift, a new realization struck her. She wasn't just fighting for acknowledgement. She was battling against a generational legacy of fear. What would it take to overturn that expectation? The intensity of her journey had only just begun, and as her heart raced with renewed purpose, Sarah braced herself. She could feel the confrontation between anger and hope bubbling just beneath. It was preparing to erupt, revealing a deeper complexity in the family dynamic she had always perceived as stable. Perhaps, just perhaps, her parents needed to follow her into the chaos she had stirred and confront their own fears alongside her. Would they discover their capacity for love beyond conventional expectations? Or would the rift deepen, ultimately driving her further into her solitary quest for authenticity? The tension in the room settled into an awkward silence, heavy and palpable. Sarah stood at the precipice of her decision, the stillness offering her a moment to reflect on what was truly at stake. Her parents remained a mixture of concerned and confused, caught in the web of their own apprehensions. This moment was more than a mere family discussion. It represented a potential fracture in the foundation of their relationships. But within Sarah, new fires sparked. She couldn't ignore the thrill coursing through her veins, urging her toward change. No longer would she simply bend to the pressures around her. She would take initiative and carve out a space for her vision, even if it came with sacrifices. "Let me show you," she said, summoning the courage that had begun to well within her like a warm tide. "I understand your fears, but I need you to understand mine as well. I want to show you the world through my eyes." Her voice carried a weight of genuine sincerity. As her parents exchanged hesitant glances, she felt an unexpected urge to share her vision. She pictured canvases sprawling across walls, colors igniting the air, and the fleeting joy of creating without the shackles of expectation. "Want to know what scares me the most?" she asked, her voice softer now, yet tinged with a steely resolve. "Living a life that isn't mine. A life dictated by someone else's dreams. What will be left of me if I constantly live in the shadow of uncertainty?" Her father's expression wavered, the cracks in his stoic facade becoming apparent. "But Sarah, you have a good education, stability, you've worked hard for this life." The struggles of her past resonated through her. A lifetime of academic achievements meant to secure a future that had never felt like hers. "That's just it. I know how to excel in what's traditional, but that doesn't excite me. I need to embrace what makes me come alive." She watched her parents wrestle with her words, the disconnect between their understanding and her aspirations leaving a chasm. With her heart pounding like a drum, Sarah made a decision. She would take the next steps alone if she had to. She turned to Derek, who had remained a steadfast presence. "Let us start exploring my art together. I want to dive into projects, make mistakes, and discover this journey unrestricted." Derek's face lit up, encouraging warmth bubbling in his eyes. "That sounds incredible, Sarah. We can even team up. We could build something organic. You deserve the chance to chase after something that ignites your passion." A small flicker of hope ignited in her chest. Forcing herself to focus, she turned back to her parents, feeling a knot of understanding pass between her and Derek. "It won't happen overnight, and I can't expect you to jump on board immediately. But I need to know, will you support me as I journey into the unknown?" Their brows knitted tighter, the air thick with anticipation. Would they accept her plea, or would they retreat into familiar reservations? She could almost hear the ticking of the clock, the urgency mirroring the beating heart beneath her skin. "Look," her mother finally said, voice trembling, "we might not understand your art or this vision entirely, but if this is truly who you are, then let me be that person." Sarah interjected, courage driving her forward. The essence of creation mirrored the essence of life itself, a dance of risk and reward. But before her mother could finish, Sarah felt the urgency building. What if this conversation shifted everything? The fear of rejection from her family loomed large, and in that moment, she recognized a deeper truth. Her parents were built on the very foundations of their fears, but did they even know her world? As the silence stretched taut between them, it left behind a churning sensation in her stomach. The possibility of a family transformed by willingness to see beyond their norms hung suspended, creating a bridge between their worlds. But as she stood on that bridge, the path ahead was still clouded in uncertainty. What if they didn't follow? Would her evolution into a fearless creator only underline their fears? A single question lingered in the air, begging for resolution. Would her courage to embrace her authenticity ignite a similar flame in them, or would it reveal an irreparable divide? The confrontation had merely begun. The true struggle lay ahead. As the gallery buzzed with anticipation, Sarah stood poised at the crossroads of her past and future, ready to embrace everything she had fought for. A stillness enveloped her, and the cacophony of the crowd faded into the background. Her heart raced as her gaze traveled back to her parents, searching for signs of both recognition and acceptance. Her mother finally mustered the courage to speak, the tremor in her voice a sign of her internal struggle. "Sarah, we want what's best for you, but all we see is risk. It's hard for us to understand this journey you've chosen." Each word from her mother felt like a thread of hope, even if tangled with uncertainty. Holding her breath, Sarah met her mother's gaze with unyielding determination. "I know it's not easy to understand. You've taught me the value of security, of making right choices in life," she said, her voice steady. "But what good is all that if it comes at the price of my authenticity?" In that moment, she felt like a bridge, a conduit between her parents' expectations and her aspirations. Her father shifted his stance, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes, a crack in the wall built so carefully over the years. "We've always wanted you to succeed, Sarah," he said, "and art it has always felt like risk. It's just something we're not equipped to support." His admission struck deep, an unexpected moment of vulnerability that mirrored her own struggle for acceptance. "Then let us redefine success together," she urged, voice infused with passion. "Success doesn't have to mean achieving a standard you've laid out. It could mean pursuing what makes us whole, even if it looks different than we expected." The energy in the room shifted, reflecting her tenacity, and she felt her heartbeat synchronize with that of the gallery around her and the hushed atmosphere. She continued, "Every painting is my story, my fears, my aspirations. I'm asking you to step into this world with me, to see beyond your fears and embrace my truth." Her voice wrapped around their uncertainty, weaving openness into the tense air. As her parents stood silent, grappling with the enormity of her revelation, she couldn't help but draw on the external validation surrounding her. The applause, the excitement of the attendees resonated deeply within her, a reminder that she was not alone in this journey. She had already transformed her narrative, finding both acceptance and recognition outside her family. Her father's hands unfolded slowly, revealing the tightly gripped arms he had crossed. "You have shown us your passion tonight, and I can see how important this is to you. But what about the future?" His question held both a challenge and an invitation. "What if the future is not as rigid as we imagined?" Sarah replied, her heart swelling with hope. "Let me carve my path. Failure may come, but so will growth, and I want you to share that journey with me. I don't want to hide anymore." Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a spontaneous round of applause from the gallery, a swirling wave of support that echoed through her. The horizons of her future began to clarify as she realized her boldness had allowed others to see her essence. "Art may be a gamble for you, but it fills my spirit and connects me to life." She took a deep breath, shifting the focus of her parents' anxieties into a vision of shared reconciliation. "Imagine the stories we could create together, stories reflecting our evolving relationship, tales of love intertwined with every brushstroke." At that moment, her mother's tears slipped down her cheeks, the warmth of her emotions radiating sadly yet beautifully throughout the gallery. "Sarah, if your dream is to craft your existence in colors and shapes, then I want to support you, even if I find it difficult to understand. I just want you to be happy." Tears stung her own eyes as Sarah felt the weight of years peel away. This was the bridge that had been built, a connection fortified by her own transformation into a strong and confident artist. "Thank you, Mom. I want to share this passion together. I'm not looking for us to agree, but for us to walk together in love despite our differences." Sarah embraced her mother, a quiet affirmation that spoke volumes. With that simple act, a sense of profound achievement enveloped her. She had dismantled the walls and stepped boldly into the frame of her own life, creating not only a new narrative for herself, but also a bridge towards understanding with her parents. This was not just her victory, it was their triumph as a family. The crowd buzzed again, carried by an electric energy, tangible hope for renewal. Sarah stood taller, recognizing the impact of her metamorphosis. She had proven to herself that pursuing her passion wouldn't merely help her self-discovery, it could also foster familial bonds with a resolute heart. Sarah turned to the gallery attendees, grateful for their support. Thank you for believing in my journey. Art has a way of weaving us together, and I hope to share more of my story with you all. As her voice rang out, punctuated by applause, she understood that she had stepped into a new realm, a world realizing its worth through the very art she created. At that moment, Sarah was not just an artist, she was a living testament to courage, creativity, and the unwavering bond of family, reclaiming her identity with every brushstroke she would continue to paint. And as the crowded gallery swirled with camaraderie and connection, it became clear. Adversity had shaped her, but it was the love she had rekindled that would guide her forward. Now is the time for you to embrace your personal journey. Transform your aspirations into reality. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the voices that matter. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your opinion is crucial to us. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to uplift those around you with the genuine essence of personal growth.